Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Blockchain Professionals Brown Bag Meetup series. I'm your host, Alec, and if you're new here, this event is brought to you by our community of blockchain engineers. We are kind of think space of blockchain professionals who are interested in the concept of blockchain and who are also very eager to aim to accelerate its early adoption. And we host such meetups every Tuesday. And please subscribe to our social media channels or visit our website to get all the invitations or find the recordings of our previous ones. And we also have many other interesting activities like conferences, articles, podcasts, and many other kind of interesting content. And our last big event has taken place recently, a couple of weeks ago. We've got the Blockchain Community Day conference. It's already published on our YouTube channel, and please once again visit our social media pages and the website to find all the links, all the recordings. And without further ado, I'd like to invite our today's guest, who is Mykhailo Tyutin. Just a second. One moment, and I will invite Mikhail, who is going to talk about building components of compliant DeFi. Just a second. Mikhail, hi, how are you?
Hi, nice to meet you. Fine, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you for being with us today. And without further delay, I will bring your presentation to the stage. I hope now everyone can see it. And I think we are good to start. Good luck, Mikhail. The floor is yours.
Much. So hi everyone, I'm Mike or Miha. So actually, I'm a CTO for Purify and Varger. So actually, both are companies that I'm involved in for quite a long time, since the very beginning, let's say. And my professional experience and my work for both companies is concentrated on building blockchain and DeFi products that we build for our customers in Varger and for Purify as our product company. So let's talk about building compliant DeFi today. So this is quite an interesting topic. So it's very emerging, I would say, in terms of what's going on the DeFi market right away. And the regulators are not sleeping, so they're very slow, but they're still thinking how to make all the DeFi solutions that are working on the market right now more compliant and make them follow the compliance procedures that was originally designed for banking and financial sectors. So let's move on. So what's DeFi is? DeFi is a financial services on public blockchain. So it emerged back in 2020 when Uniswap first, or maybe even 2019, when Uniswap first published the swapping DeFi product. So this DeFi product was dedicated to make immediate swaps on chain, and its major difference comparing to classic order book products was that it introduced so-called reserve-backed swaps. So you cannot actually build efficient order book on chain because when you use an order book for swaps, it requires a matching engine. And the matching engine is something that could not be built efficiently on chain. So that's why Uniswap introduced a reserve-based swaps. So when you want to swap one token into another token, you immediately get this another token back according to current price, which is dictated by the amount of reserves that actually is under control of the swap contract. Then another DeFi protocols appeared, like loans, derivatives, and much more. So I would not stop a lot on this kind of products. Just let's assume. I suggest that you just Google about them if you are not aware of them. So there are a lot of products now, and they're still evolving. So talking about Uniswap itself, so right now the actual version is this Uniswap 3, and recently Uniswap published its Uniswap version 4, and I expect there will be much more DeFi products in future. But So what are the benefits compared to traditional finances? So first of all the DeFi products are open in terms of you do not need to open an account to use this DeFi product. You just need a crypto address and you need coins on this address. So no matter how you get these coins, when you have them, you can use DeFi product. So it's different from the regular TradeFi product in terms of you do not have to open account and follow KYC, ML procedures, provide source of funds and stuff like that. You just can use it. So they all are pseudo anonymous in terms of unless your address is identified as the address that belongs to you, no one knows who is actually under control of this address and who is making swaps. So this is called pseudo anonymity. So these products are flexible. So you can move these assets at any time without asking permissions. So when you swap your token, it's no one who can prevent you swap these tokens. You are swapping when you like. You're swapping the amount you like. It's only limited by the liquidity that is provided by DeFi product. So these swaps are fast and immediate. So whenever you initiate the swap, it's completed when transaction is included into the blockchain. And this is a big difference comparing to transactions that you initiate with traditional finance product, which has settlement like T+3, T+2, or within the day. So, but in terms of DeFi, it's always instant. So when transaction is included in blockchain, you have your tokens. So, but along with these benefits comes downside. And downsides compared to TradeFi, the first fall, let's say, for worth of mention, is that high speed and I would say low liquidity as well brings high volatility risks. So if you have significant amount of tokens and not enough liquidity in Uniswap or products like that, it means that you will not be able to swap with a reasonable price. This will result in significant price drop. It also means that if there are much more users that are willing to swap at the same time, this will result in high volatility of the token. And if majority of users will be swapping in the same direction, this will also result in high drops of the price or high rise of the price, depending on what kind of operations are they using. So this also means so there is also a point that there is no intermediary. So this means when you initiated a swap transaction and this transaction is included into blockchain, it's not reversible. So this means that you will not be able to call support and say, well, hi, I have made a mistake. Can you please revert this transaction? So there is no person that can actually do this for you. And another risk is that smart contracts and blockchain is a still emerging technology. And this result in high security risks. And if you know, during the last year, I think that more than $2 billion were stolen from different DeFi protocols. So the biggest hack that I remember was around $600 million from the single protocol. And another problem that I would like to mention is compliance and taxation. So no intermediary means that you will not have a company who will provide you with compliance and taxation service. So you will have to do your balance sheets, you will have to do your tax reports on your own, and consult with your tax authorities and deal with your tax authorities on your own. So this is how it works right now. So how DeFi protocols are actually built? So they are built on a blockchain in the form of smart contracts. But in order for users to interact with a smart contract, they have to issue transactions. And these transactions could be very complex in terms of their structure and parameters that you have to provide. So for simplifying this to users, companies are building DApps, which is actually a website that provides you interface to the smart contract. It provides you with some data that shows you the actual state of the smart contract. For example, the amount of reserves, the current price of the tokens, and stuff like that. Having this information, you can initiate this the transaction. So the DApp actually forms transaction for you, and then you have to sign this transaction with a wallet and then publish this transaction on chain, following this line from reading transaction from reading data to preparing transaction, signing transaction, and sending this transaction to blockchain. Then the transaction is processed by the smart contract. It applies changes to reserves and send you some tokens back. So this is actually how a typical DeFi protocol works. So right now we have to talk a little bit about how financial institution could integrate with DeFi. So this will be important because when you're doing swaps on your own, you normally do not have to follow all that complex compliance procedures. But if we're talking about financial institutions, the majority of them are regulated and they have to comply to existing regulations and they have to follow procedures. So if we're talking about financial institutions and their interactions with DeFi protocol, many of them are actually thinking about starting from banks and by financial institutions like hedge funds who operate a large amount of liquidity and money. So in order to understand how this integration might happen, we have to decouple all the process into specific layers. So I have put 5 layers right here, which is custody, liquidity, execution, surveillance, and reporting. And for each of these layers, there is a specific regulation. It might exist as of today. It might not exist as of today in terms of DeFi. For example, there is a regulation for custody, and it could be applied for custody layer. So there is a regulation for a liquidity layer, which is MiCA in European Union, for example. So there is an execution layer, but as far as I know, there is no exact regulation for crypto brokerage. Unless I think it might exist in some jurisdictions, but there is no kind of general regulation. So there is a surveillance level when in financial institutions has to comply with KYC, AML, do screening, transaction monitoring, and stuff like that. And there is also a reporting level where financial institution has to understand how to keep their balance sheets, how to do taxation for their customers, how do they have to report to regulators regarding different transaction and suspicious activity and stuff like that. So all this works on this level. And for every of these levels, there should be solutions like IT solutions that work specifically on these levels, and they have to be integrated in the flow. So talking about exact solutions. So when we are talking about custody levels, there is a service or like, for example, BitGo, which provide you with a custody in the cloud. There are some HD wallets that you might use. There are hardware wallets and stuff like that. They're all integrated with the blockchain and works on custody level. So there is a liquidity level. So by liquidity, we understand the stable coins and asset-backed tokens. So liquidity level providers are the companies who produce and emit stable coins that other people use. For example, this could be USDT, USDC, BitGo with its wrapped BTC token, which is an asset-backed token. So these are the examples. So the execution level includes a trading solution integrated with the blockchain. When you do trading on DeFi, you should have DApp like on this second slide that we've been viewing, and but you might not be able to use this DApp on its own when we are talking about financial institution. Most likely, financial institution will require some specific software to be designed for directly integrate with the smart contracts and prepare the transaction for DeFi smart contracts. But after all, this is all which is working on execution level. So the surveillance level is about compliance and monitoring software. So there are 5 biggest companies who are working in this on this level. So Chainalysis, Crystal, Elliptic, TRM Labs, I'm on them. So these are the biggest companies. So they provide analytics and risk score for every single blockchain address which is used by people on blockchain. And when we are talking about transacting between P2P and between different parties, how do you understand that the crypto that goes into your direction is clean in terms of it was not it had never been used for trading drugs and stuff like that. So these companies provide you with that kind of information. So with this information, you can understand what is the risk profile of crypto that is going into your direction. And the reporting level. So I think I cannot give you any exact examples of companies who are working on this level, except for a few companies that are working on specifically in taxation for crypto. So these are the products that are dedicated mainly for individual traders. They can grab all your transactions from blockchain, and then you can make the notes for these transactions and create some reports for taxation authorities and then send to them. So this is the only kind of software that I've been ever seen working for this specific reporting level. So let's move on. If we are talking about each level, I just put them on the middle line. We have the solutions that are working on specific levels that are listed on the top line, and there is a transaction which originates in the wallet, goes into the blockchain, triggers liquidity and execution level contracts, then is monitored by compliance monitoring systems, and then is monitored by reporting system, and then is reported to tax authorities. And this is all about one single transaction. That is, so why is this important? So we've been talking that DeFi is pseudo-anonymous. So if we're talking about each of these solutions working on each level, they are not interconnected. And normally every single solution has no information about the transaction that was processed by the solution on previous level. Meaning that, let's say, a token contract has no idea what kind of wallet actually signed this transaction and send it on chain. A DeFi contract normally has no understanding, so it has understanding what kind of token will be processed, but it does not interact with a token contract in terms of who originally sent this token to DeFi contract. For compliance system, they're working after the transaction is included on chain. They can monitor technical transactions that are in a mempool. So these are the transactions that are not included in blockchain yet. But normally they're working with transactions that are already included in the blockchain. But DeFi contract has no understanding what is the risk profile of the asset that are going into directions of this DeFi contract. Let's say if imagine a Uniswap contract which is accepting tokens and swap it back to another tokens. It has no understanding what is the risk profile of the crypto that is going into address of this Uniswap contract. So there is no interconnection. And after all, the reporting system, when it grabs the transaction from the blockchain, it just monitors the address, and it has no understanding what is the financial meaning of all the transactions. It may guess, and they use some heuristics to guess what kind of transactions they're looking at. But normally, traders have to put some notes and mark the transactions that reporting system cannot understand. So when we're talking about compliance, so this brings us to the position that this brings us into the position that we have to, on a single level, we have to know a little bit more about transaction that we are going to process. And this results in requirement for so-called transaction metadata layer. And this is something that cannot be built on chain, on a blockchain layer. So there should be some transaction metadata layer which is built somehow, I would say, that nobody see this level unless this person is allowed to see this, allowed to process this transaction. If we're talking about DeFi transaction processing, which originates in the wallet, this means that wallet has to provide some extra information on who and when have signed this transaction. So this will benefit to travel rule compliance, for example. When this transaction is accepted by a liquidity level, by token contract on liquidity level, this token contract has to provide a little bit more information on who is the receiver of the transaction, of the token, of the assets in this transaction. And if you are talking about DeFi smart contract, this smart contract should be aware of the risk scores. For example, when it swaps the assets from one asset into another asset. So then when we are talking about, but for doing this, there should be an interaction between a compliance and monitoring system with a DeFi contract. And finally, when we're talking about reporting system, it should be aware of who, when, and why have performed this transaction. And all this results into requirement that there should be some transaction metadata layer which will keep this data and provide this data to different levels of transaction execution. And then we will be able to say that this transaction has enough data to say that this transaction is compliant or is not compliant to current regulations. So after all, what we can conclude is that the transaction metadata layer enables building compliant DeFi, and this is something that we will be talking about during the next few slides. So first of all, what transaction metadata layer gives us? It defines the chain of, there should be defined chains of responsibility. So what exact solution on what layer is responsible for transaction, and what data can it share with others to keep the transaction in the regulated space. So how this data should be shared? They could be shared with direct P2P communication, which is based on the well-established protocols, which are working for quite a long time, and they have enough cryptography stuff and regulations how they should be performed and organized. So if we are talking about blockchain level, which requires some data from the transaction metadata layer, we have to understand that we cannot post any private any person identification information on chain. So, but how can we make these protocols based on a smart contract use this data? And there is a good technology that comes that steps in, which is zero knowledge proofs, or ZKP. By using ZKP, we can obfuscate the data and post the facts about this data on chain, which gives enough credibility for smart contract based protocols to process the transaction, and if they have this zero knowledge proof. And the last but not the least, it is this transaction metadata layer and how all this is interconnected and processed should keep the defined benefits that we've been originally discussed. So if we are talking about these benefits, I can get back to slide number 2 and reference to these benefits that are listed right here. It should be open, pseudonymous, flexible, and fast. So right now I will be talking about few examples how people or companies attempted to build compliant DeFi. And example number 1 will be Uniswap. So what Uniswap did, it attempted to enforce compliance on the DApp level, which is, I would say, a kind of compliance. So they cannot say that they have not done anything, so they probably will not be punished by regulators. But the solution they applied is applied on a DApp level, which means this only affects the process of preparing transaction. And if we change the solution on a custody level, for example, a wallet, this will automatically result in avoiding all the compliance that they built on a DApp level. So imagine you're working with Uniswap DApp from Iran. If you just open uniswap.org from Iran, it will not open because it's geofenced. But if you construct transaction yourself and sign it with your own wallet and publish it on chain from Iran, you will swap your tokens, because smart contract which is used by Uniswap has no information where this transaction was created and from what exact point it was originating. So the compliance at this point is not actually enforced. So example number 2. So we will be talking about Circle USDC coin. So how it works? If you have your USD on a bank account, you can open an account in Circle company in United States. They do KYC check for you. They will open your account. You can wire transfer them your USD, and they will mint appropriate amount of USDC and send back to your wallet. So at this point, compliance will be enforced. But when you, as a compliant user, will be sending, or authenticated user will be sending your your USDC to another user, USDC or Circle will not enforce any compliance. This means that compliance is kind of working in optimistic mode, meaning that when you're stepping into the USDC, when you're sending your USD and they minting you USDC coins, they make sure you are compliant. When you are trying to exit USDC into USD, they will also make sure you are compliant. But what happens in between is actually under the radar. So, but still, USDC smart contract is designed in the way that it has a blacklist. This means that if authorities make call to your Circle company and says, well, this exact address is very suspicious. We think this address is really used for trading drugs. They can blacklist this address and block all the funds that is used by this address. And then what can you do if you are holding this address? You have to come to USDC, you have to open account, you have to provide all the documents. And then they might unblock or might transfer your data to authorities. So this is a optimistic compliance, let's say optimistic compliance mode that is actually used by USDC. It becomes very popular. So I've seen a lot of companies that are trying to follow the same optimistic compliance approach. And the main point here is that this type of compliance is actually applicable to one single liquidity layer only. you normally cannot use this type of compliance if you're through the whole sequence of products. Let's get back to this diagram. So I mean, this is a token contract, and USDC is working solely in liquidity layer. So if we're talking about interaction between DeFi contracts and the USDC contract, is not really possible right now. Okay, let's move on. Another example how compliance is enforced on liquidity level is SF4 convertible token created by Societe Generale. So it employs pessimistic compliance. What means a pessimistic compliance? It means that there is a whitelist incorporated into a token contract, and before you will be able to use this token, you have to go and open an account in Societe Generale, and only after that you will be able to transfer to euro. Then they will mint exact amount onto a crypto address. But unlike USDC, you will not be able to transfer your euro coins to any other address that have not opened account in Societe Generale. And more of all, what they do actually is every single transfer transaction has to be approved by the bank. It requires another approval transaction that should be issued by the bank. So this is very, very pessimistic compliance, very strict, I would say, compliance mode. And this actually breaks one of the main good point in using DeFi protocols, which is you can do all the operations within a single transaction. So you will not be able to do swap if you are using this token. So for you in Uniswap, unless Societe Generale whitelist all their contracts that are used within the DeFi protocol, which is really not possible, I would say, because for companies to do that, they should have an entity. And a lot of DeFi protocols even don't have any entities. So they say they're DAO controlled, there might not be entities. So there is a very low chance that these smart contracts would ever be whitelisted by this guy, by Societe Generale. So I would not recommend, let's say, this way of enforcing compliance, but Societe Generale did this. And unlike USDC, which is the second major stablecoin in the whole crypto ecosystem, Societe Generale is not used by any person, as far as I see. You can follow this. You can follow this link that I've just pasted right here, which is your CV contract, and see how many transactions they have. They have no transactions. So right now we will be talking a little bit about solutions that provide compliance not just on liquidity layer, but on execution level as well. So the first example is a Polygon ID, which is a ZK KYC solution that makes use of P2P communication and enables some communication on transaction data layer. So they follow the classical SSI paradigm when you have an issuer, a holder, and a verifier. So a user is actually a holder of credentials, and issuer is an authority that issues the credentials. And here P2P communication exists between them, and there is a verifier which is incorporated in smart contract on liquidity or execution level. And this is a separate smart contract, so you can employ them, this smart contract, on both liquidity and execution level. And if you do this, this means that by having the only credential and using this credential within the transaction, you can actually interact with both token contract on liquidity level and the DeFi protocol contract on execution level, which is really good. So this is something that differs this protocol from the previous solution that we've been discussing. So this verification cannot be avoided if you have not provided ZKP proof. The contracts on liquidity or execution level will just revert your transaction. It will not be processed. But the main point I would emphasize in this protocol is that it doesn't provide enough information back to the transaction metadata level. For example, if you are a company that is doing swaps, for example, and authorities came to you and said, well, we have an address, and what do you know about this address? Who's behind this address? The only thing you have is this ZKP, which doesn't give you any information on who is behind this transaction, and you cannot interact with an issuer of these credentials, and you have no even understanding of who is the issuer of these credentials. This introduces a break between execution level and transaction metadata level, and this actually prevents you as an execution level contract provider to follow the regulation. So this is a cool protocol, a cool attempt, and good exceptional technologies that are used. But actually, this approach is not compliant with actual regulations, and this is something that you have to keep in mind. What can you actually do with Polygon ideas of today? Let's say if you are regulated the way like alcohol traders are regulated, meaning that you do not have to do a full KYC. You have to, let's say, just make sure that the person that is buying alcohol is above 18 or 21 years old, depending on the jurisdiction we are talking about. That you just have to be sure that this person is about the exact age. So for this particular type of regulation, ZKP and Polygon ID is enough. But do we have that kind of regulation in crypto? I think no. The regulations in crypto strictly require that you have to do KYC and keep the documents. Now we will be talking about Purify, which is my company, so I'm a bit biased at this point. So what we did in Purify is that we are using P2P communication between different parties on transaction metadata layer. We're not using the KP, but we are publishing some data on chain without personal identification or information, which provides enough information back to transaction metadata layer. Let's say if the same example as before, if you are a smart solution provider on execution level, for example, a swap or a lending protocol, and you have no understanding who's behind the address. But if you get back to the transaction that included the data produced by Purify issuer, you have special identifier that you can use to when you contact our company, because we have an established company and entity, and you can provide this with this identifier, and we will track back who was behind this transaction. And this is something that differs Purify from Polygon ID. So despite the fact that Purify integrates Polygon ID right now, so there is a big difference between how these protocols are working on the smart contract level. So same to Polygon ID, this solution can be used both on liquidity and execution level. And this prevents malicious users to directly interact with smart contracts without having credentials. But important point about Purify is that ideally it should be integrated on both liquidity and execution level. And we are also talking with some wallets so that they integrate our solution even on a custody level as well. If we integrate Purify on every single level, this will result that in effect that Purify will handle all the information about transaction metadata until it reaches the compliance level, until it reaches surveillance level. And assuming this, there will be one entity that will keep all this data. So is it secure? Yes, it is, but it's a security that is provided by a company. Is it decentralized? No, because all this information is kept by the only company. But in general, Purify is a company that provides a protocol, so anyone can, let's say, open our GitHub and implement their own issue and follow our protocol and be another issuer and build another verifiers that are using the same approach for smart contracts on a liquidity and execution level. And this is how it works. Basically, this is all I plan to talk about today. If you have any questions, we can talk about. I can listen to these questions and answer them now.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Micha, for delivering such great content. And I would like to remind everyone to leave your questions in the live chat. And before we get some questions, I'd like to sum up your presentation. And I think it's very important to raise such topics about compliant DeFi, about compliance in general, since usually people tend to speak about the technology itself, but not about all these kind of things which are holding the implementation and quick adoption of blockchain. And what are the main unsolved issues currently to make it real in every sphere? I mean, maybe you can just say a couple of words about jurisdictions, about maybe some kind of KYC kind of things.
Sure. So the main unsolved problem is regulation itself. So there are many authorities that try to regulate crypto. So we have in every single jurisdiction there is an authority that regulates the crypto. They're all trying to follow FATF recommendation, as far as I see, but the rules right now are mainly covering custodies and the products on liquidity level. So the best example of regulation of liquidity level is actually MiCA, which merged in European Union this year, and it will be effective starting from the next year, as far as I remember. But let's say, talking about execution level, talking about DeFi protocols, there is no well-established regulation on this level.
Mm-hmm. And who is the main, who should be driving all these kind of things? I mean, which parties are involved, and who should be the most initiative in these terms? I mean, are there any kind of is it a problem of institutions, or maybe or a problem of technology vendors or anyone else?
So I would say that so people are not willing to be regulated, let's say. So this is natural. No one wants to follow the regulation if they're not really enforced to do regulations. But what it results in, if you get back, let's say, to 2017, 2019, when there was an ICO boom, how many companies actually collected money from users and just disappeared? And this was not just companies; it was natural persons without companies, no entities, no regulation. They just collected money and disappeared. So every single time we have users who send their $10,000 to a company doing ICO, this company evaporates. This results in this person claiming to authorities that there should be a regulation. But after all, when regulators start trying to make rules to make companies comply rules, founders get back and say, well, we do not need any regulation. the market will do anything, everything on its own. So it's actually a chicken and the egg problem, I would say. But right now, as far as I see, mainly the business community is driving these talks about regulations, because business community understands that regulations will definitely come, and if they will not be involved in the process of defining this regulation, there will be the regulation that is copied from a TradeFi regulation. And this is not the best way of doing regulation in crypto. The example of Societe Generale token is a good example that if you do exactly the things that are normal to TradeFi for a DeFi, you result in having very stupid solution, and people will not be using this solution.
Okay, and in terms of jurisdictions, I mean, every country has its own jurisdiction, and what are the examples? I mean, yeah, you previously mentioned Mika, but after all, I mean, in terms of separate countries, what countries are kind of doing their best in terms of compliance in the sphere of blockchain?
I would say it's Switzerland. Many people are incorporating in Switzerland. They have quite a good regulation. I know the Malta has had a good regulation. I know a lot of companies who are doing gambling products involving, including crypto gambling, are incorporated in Malta. I know about Gibraltar, but I didn't heard about Gibraltar during last 2 years, let's say. Before, in 2017 and 2018, it was very popular jurisdiction. I know there is a lot of talks going on in United Kingdom to create a regulation similar to European Union MiCA. I know there are some talks in United States, but it's very complex. I'm not following that regulation. There is a big fuss around USDC, between USDC, Coinbase, and authorities right there. How this regulation has to be applied and stuff like that. But even though United States is the biggest market, and the way they apply regulation will definitely affect all the crypto industry.
Okay, so yeah, I think that was very interesting to know about regulation. It definitely needs some more research, and that's very interesting to see how it's evolving. I mean, both the technology part with blockchain and the legal part, as the legislature isn't prepared for such an innovative field, and of course this kind of conservative field needs to be evolving as well. And I don't see any questions from the live chat, but I think that there will be some discussions maybe later after we publish the recording on our YouTube channel. And before we go, I would like to announce our next session, which will be hosted next week. And we are going to invite Sasha Baksht, who is a founder of Learn Near Club. And I would like to remind you to subscribe to our social media channels, not to miss the announcement of the next sessions. And thank you everyone for attending. Let's conclude our today's webinar. And Micha, thank you so much for coming. If there will be any questions, I will address them directly to you. And I hope to meet you in person on Saturday here in Astana.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Meet you on Saturday.
Bye-bye.